Let's talk about authentication in Laravel. Now, authentication means how we can authenticate a user and log in the user into our application. So there are already starter packs available such as Jetstream, Laravel Breeze, but here we are learning the core concepts of Laravel. Before moving to those starter packs, we should know what or how the actually Laravel works behind that nutshell. So how those packages work with Laravel and how they are providing us the functionality, so that maybe in future if we are going to use those packages and we need to something modify something in that packages or in their functionality, we should know what we are doing in those packages. So for that we need to learn how to authenticate a user programmatically, so that if in future if we are not going to use any package, we should know how we can deal with that. So let's get started. Before that, we need to first of all create a user, and then after that we will log in the user in the system. So right now if I go into the database and I should check my users table, so this users table is right now empty. Now let's create a user first. So I have created an endpoint of sign up. Now let's create another endpoint and I will name it as post. And on this sign up endpoint, when the post will hit, the user will maybe let's call a function of register, and let's give this name register as well. Now in this file, let's use the form, and action should be route, and then I'm going to target the register here, and then the method should be post, because we have defined the post in our web routes. And obviously don't forget to use the CSRF token, because if we are not going to use the CSRF token, Laravel will throw us the token mismatch error. Now let's create this function in our signup controller, and this function will accept the request. So this will accept the request, and we are not going to use this request out of the box, but before that let's actually dump and die all requests to see what we are actually getting in the form request. And obviously once we will see what we are getting, then we will create a new form request class, which we have learned in our previous lectures. Now we need to make sure that we have the proper naming here. So this should be named as full name, or maybe just a name. Then we have email, and this should also be named to email. Password would be password, and then we have repeat your password. Obviously we need the password confirmation, and then we need to set it as password confirmation, like so. And then we also need to set the default values. So if there is any error, the form should return us the values that we filled before submitting the form. So for that we will use the old method in the input field, and we will replicate this for all other input fields except the password, because the password will never be the same when the form submits. So we don't need any pre-filled option in the password. Now let's reload the page and fill some dummy data here, and let's submit it. So we need to make sure that the button type is submit. Once that is done, reload the page, fill the form and submit. It's still not submitting. Let me see what we are actually missing here. So we have form, action, method is post. Let's actually try to remove this attribute class. Maybe this is creating some issue. Yep. So now you can see we are now getting the token, the name, email and the password. Now let's create a form class, PHP artisan sign up form request. Sorry, PHP artisan make request. Now we should target the sign up form request, and inside that request we need to first of all set this to true because we are authorizing it and the form should be submitted. And then we need to set the rules here. So the first rule is basically we need the name, and the name we set this to required. It should be string, and the minimum length of that name should be maybe 3 characters. And then we have the email. Email is also required. It should be email. It should be unique, and it should be unique inside the users table, and it should target the email here. Then we also need the password. So for the password we don't need the uniqueness here, and the password could be string, so it should be string, the password. And then finally we need the password confirmation. So for that we need to copy this password underscore confirmation name here. We set this to required, we set this to string, and we need to use this as required string, and here we need to set this to as confirmed. And before that we actually need to change this hyphen sign into underscore, because the Laravel detects password underscore confirmation, not password hyphen confirmation, like so. Now if I just reload the page, fill the form and submit, let's see what we are actually getting. So this is now passing and we are getting the data back from the request. Now if I just reload the page and fail something here, maybe just change the password and hit submit, now we are back to this page because this is indicating that the password is not correct. So let's actually show those error messages up top here. So above this sign up here, I am going to paste this code, and here this will indicate that the following has an alert. So now if I reload the page, I submit the form, and let's change the password and hit back. Now you can see this throws an error, the password confirmation field does not match. Alright, now let's actually make that happen and submit the data into the database here. So for that all we need is basically we need to go to the sign up controller, the sign up controller here, and let's submit the form in the database or submit the fields in the database. So for that what we need is basically I will catch all the requests into a variable or into an array, and here I'm going to use this as key values. So we have name, email and password. So name should be $request input and name. Then similarly we have email, we have password, that's it. And we can use the password here, email, and we are already using the name. Lastly what we need to do is basically we need to create the user. So all we can do is basically set this a user variable and store it user create, like so, and pass this an information array. Now let's dump and die the user which is created after the form has been submitted. So now if I reload the page one more time, fill the data, submit, and you can see that the user has been created. Now if I now reload the page here, you can see that the password is automatically set and the email and the name and email is automatically set as well. Now what else we need basically, so the user has been created, we are now able to successfully create the user. Let's now return this user and redirect it to the login page like so. And let's test this functionality one more time. If I submit, first of all, I should see an error that the email has already been taken because the form is submitted again and the user has already used that email. Now, if I use create another user, hit register. Now the user has been created and I am now redirected to this login form. And if I check the database, you can see that the user has been created and I am now at the login page here. Alright, so that's about it for this video where we have learned how we can store the user in the database. And in the next video, we are going to talk about how we can authenticate that user, specific that user based on their email and password. So that's about it, and I will see you in the next one.